My name is Calla, and on the day I got married, my mother posted a photo of a picnic and captioned it, "Celebrating the ones who matter most." I was not in the picture. I wasn't even in the conversation. I stood in a white dress, under the same clear sky, cutting a cake no one saved for her, looking at a front row seat she never planned to fill. People thought maybe she was late. I knew better. Some families hurt you with yelling. Mine did it with silence, disguised in smiles, sealed with praise for everyone but me. She didn't just skip my wedding, she erased me. This is not a story about revenge, it's about reclaiming. And if you've ever been written out of your own family's story to protect someone else's legacy, then this isn't just my story. It might be yours too. The morning of my wedding, the sunlight poured through the trees like it was trying to make up for something. My husband Reiner's family buzzed around the garden venue, fluffing linens, stringing lights, pouring coffee. It was warm, simple, beautiful. Everything we planned, everyone who mattered was there. Except her. I had already stopped checking my phone. I knew there'd be no last-minute apology, no car pulling up in haste. My mother, Darlene, had RSVP'd with silence. No reply, no call, not even a lazy excuse. When I saw her name appear in the system as viewed, I held on to hope for another week. But that silence, that was her answer. So we crossed her name off the seating chart, not because she declined, but because she decided I didn't matter enough to respond. And yet, I still set a piece of cake aside. A single sugared slice, untouched at the edge of the table. It sat there like a metaphor. Pretty, forgotten, meant for someone who never showed up. Later that night, I placed it in the fridge, next to champagne and leftover dip from Reiner's aunt. I didn't cry. I just closed the door and poured a glass of wine like I wasn't crumbling inside. 2 days later, my cousin sent me a screenshot of a post my mother shared that day. Blue and white checkered picnic blanket, sandwiches and lemonade, my sister Celine laughing beside her, holding a flute of Prosecco. The caption read, "Grateful for family traditions, celebrating the people who matter most." And just like that, I understood. I hadn't been overlooked, I'd been replaced. I didn't grow up with slamming doors or shouting matches. My mother didn't punish with belts or bruises. She wielded silence, subtle omission, the art of looking past me. Celine, my older sister, was the sun in her universe, always center, always shining. I was the shadow that just happened to be there. She got trophies, praise, celebrations for milestones I wasn't allowed to claim. When she dropped out of grad school to find herself, my mother called it brave. When I worked 3 jobs to pay for college, Darlene called it unnecessary. "You always try to make things harder for yourself, Calla." I remember one Thanksgiving when I'd been promoted to senior analyst, my first title that sounded like something. I brought it up gently at the dinner table. My mother smiled, poured gravy over the turkey, and said, "Let Celine have this year, honey. She's finally getting her life back on track." It didn't matter what I accomplished. Celine could lose everything, and our mother would bake her a pie and say, "At least you tried." I could win an award and hear, "That's nice. But have you seen Celine's new headshots?" By the time I met Reiner, I had given up trying. I had made peace with being the quiet, acceptable daughter who kept her head down and showed up on time. I didn't bring up my family often, especially not to him. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't know how to explain being invisible. Reiner noticed it early. Once, after dinner with his parents, he asked, "Why do you go quiet when I talk about your mom?" I shrugged. I didn't have the words for that kind of ache, the kind that doesn't wound, it erases. Our wedding was a small, intentional ceremony. Reiner's mother helped with my veil. His dad drove my elderly aunt in from Portland. His sister brought a homemade playlist and danced barefoot with me at the reception. There was joy, real joy. But still, when I looked out at the chairs during the vows, I counted the one left empty. The one meant for my mother. That silence was loud. Louder than I expected. Louder than any scream I'd ever heard growing up. And then came the tribute video. We had spent weeks putting it together. Old photos of us as kids, goofy clips from our first apartment, Reiner's nephews holding sparklers on the 4th of July. There were pictures of me graduating law school, clips from my first job, even one of me holding a glass of champagne the day I landed a major client. Reiner said it was the highlight reel of the life I'd built without applause. We were about to hit play when the MC paused. Looks like the USB isn't working. He fiddled with the laptop. Celine leaned over and said brightly, "We've all seen enough pictures, right?" She laughed. The crowd followed. Music came back on. The moment passed like a misstep on a staircase. Quick, jarring, dismissed. I told myself it was a technical glitch. But weeks later, Reiner plugged the same USB into his laptop. The video played perfectly. Transitions, music, my voice narrating every second. Darlene was even in some of the early clips, standing next to me at my bar exam celebration, hugging me when I passed. I'd forgotten that she used to be proud of me once, or at least pretended to be. Reiner didn't say anything, but his shoulders tensed. He closed the laptop without a word. I whispered what we both knew. Celine switched it. He nodded. We couldn't prove it, but we felt it. It was the kind of thing you know in your bones because it fits the pattern too perfectly. I sat on the edge of the bed that night and stared into the dark. They didn't just forget me. They chose not to see me. It was a Sunday afternoon, 2 weeks after the wedding, when the knock came. Not the kind that asks for permission. The kind that assumes welcome. I expected a neighbor, maybe a delivery mistake. It was my mother. Darlene stood there with 2 hard-shell suitcases and a smile she'd rehearsed in a mirror. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, as if nothing had happened, stepping inside before I could answer. "Things got a little tight at Celine's. I thought I'd stay here a while." I didn't stop her. I didn't invite her either. I just stood there, watching her roll her suitcase across a floor she once refused to co-sign. She made herself comfortable fast, like this house had always belonged to her. That first evening, she was sitting at our kitchen table sipping tea. "Chamomile," she told Reiner. "Still your favorite, right?" He looked at her like he was trying to remember which version of her to answer. Later that night, she wandered into the living room, holding a framed photo of Reiner and me. She traced the edge of the glass with her thumb and said, "I knew this place had potential. I remember when I helped you get the loan." My stomach clenched. She hadn't helped. 5 years ago, we were struggling to close on this house. Our credit was thin. The market was aggressive. I asked her if she could co-sign. Her exact words, "I love you, Calla, but I can't tie my name to something that might not last." I had printed that loan rejection, filed it away. Proof of the absence. Now she was rewriting history right in front of me. The next morning, she left a list on the kitchen counter. Grocery refills, driver to her doctor, call the HOA about roof inspection, and at the bottom, "Please don't use your office while I rest. It creaks too loud." No smiley face, no, "if you don't mind." Just instructions, like I was her assistant. I didn't argue. I just folded the paper and put it in the trash. Quiet, like she taught me. But then came the envelope. Aunt Lina came by one afternoon holding a stack of old paperwork, her face pulled tight with apology. We sat in the hallway while Darlene hummed in the kitchen. Lina slid the papers into my lap and whispered, "You should know." They were emails, chains between Darlene and a lender. Subject line, "Crosby Property, Loan Documentation Support." One line hit harder than the rest. "We are leveraging my daughter's Denver home for collateral. It's essentially my asset. I helped her acquire it. My name, my home, used to boost a loan for Celine. Not asked, used." I stared at those words until they burned holes into me. Lina patted my hand. "They've been saying it's hers for months. I didn't know if it was true." That night, Darlene rinsed dishes like nothing had cracked. Like this wasn't theft. Emotional, legal, and personal. I didn't confront her yet. Instead, I sat cross-legged in the living room, organizing old files for tax season. I opened a black folder from the year we bought the house. Inside, I found the rejection letter, my mother's signed declaration that she refused to co-sign. Her words in stark black ink, "I do not wish to attach my name to speculative property." Now she told neighbors she helped me buy the place. She told me she supported me through every step. That night, I left the letter on the counter. She didn't even flinch. "That was then," she said, picking an apple from the bowl. "You turned out fine, didn't you?" I stared at her. "You told the bank this house wasn't worth backing," I said. "Now you're calling it yours?" She bit the apple, shrugged. "Because no one challenges what I say." She was wrong. She just hadn't met me yet. Reiner stood behind me the whole time, dish towel in hand, silent. He didn't need to speak. We were past confusion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was manipulation. A long, deliberate one. The next morning over breakfast, she brought up my grandmother, her mother. "I've been meaning to ask," she said, sipping coffee. "Could you take over full-time care for Grandma? With everything going on, it'd look better if it came from you. And you work from home anyway." I blinked. "She's in Missouri." "Yes, but you don't have kids. She trusts you." I didn't laugh. I didn't yell. I just stared at her. "You skipped my wedding. You rewrote mine for hers. And now you want me to clean up your mess?" She exhaled sharply. "You always twist things." "No," I said, my voice low and final. "I finally stopped untwisting yours." She stood and left the table. No apology, no retreat. Just that same smug assurance she always wore like armor. But this time, I wasn't just hurt. I was sharpening. After she left the table, I sat alone, staring at the apple she didn't finish. The same way she never finished anything with me. Not a conversation, not a promise, not a moment of truth. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and started creating folders. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Property claims, wedding obstruction, audio evidence. I uploaded the deed to the house, photos of the venue, the florist's signed check, and every RSVP confirmation. I wasn't documenting this for revenge. I was archiving my reality. The final folder was titled The Tape, because I'd finally recorded her. It started as a safety measure, just a voice memo app open on the table while I washed dishes in the next room, but I caught enough. Her voice sharp and unfiltered. "Calla was just a bump in our family's story. Celine is the legacy." Laughter. Celine's voice followed. "She was a mistake we tried to raise right. It didn't take." Then silence. Then Crosby's chuckle, not defending, not disagreeing, just complicit. That night, I sat on the couch, phone in hand, knees pulled to my chest. Reiner came in quietly, fresh from his evening run. I didn't speak. I handed him the phone. He listened. When it ended, he asked, "Do you want to send it?" I shook my head. "No, I want them to hear it. Together, no warning, no edits." 4 days later, Aunt Elise hosted the monthly family potluck. I hadn't attended in years, but that day, I said yes. I didn't dress up, just a black sweater, jeans, and the kind of posture that doesn't apologize. The kitchen was warm, filled with noise that tried to pass for love, laughs that had sharp edges, compliments wrapped in judgment. Vera, my mother, stood near the counter, passing around cookies she didn't bake. "It's just so lovely to be with people who value togetherness," she said, loudly enough for me to hear. I walked to the dining table, set my phone in the center. Reiner was already seated. We made eye contact, one nod. I tapped play. At first, just murmurs. Then the words came. Her words, their words. My name, stripped bare, minimized, dismissed. By the time it ended, no one was chewing. Vera looked pale, frozen. Her hand moved toward the phone like she could rewind the moment. "This isn't how we handle things in this family," she hissed. I stood. My voice was low, even. "You're right. That's why I'm not doing it your way anymore." I didn't expect applause. I didn't need it. The finality. But I saw eyes widen. I saw my cousins lower their drinks. I saw Aunt Elise wipe at her eyes and begin clearing plates early, muttering, "Maybe we all needed to hear it." No apology came. Not from Vera. Not from Celine. But it didn't matter, because I had stopped needing permission to be visible. The next day, Vera posted on Facebook. A photo of my house, cropped to perfection. The caption read, "30 years ago, I began building a home for our family legacy. Today, I'm proud to still be guiding that legacy from the home where our children grew up." There was no trace of me, just white siding, manicured grass, and lies. So I posted 3 images to the neighborhood forum, her Facebook post, my mortgage deed, and a still shot from our tribute video, the one she tried to bury. Me, smiling beside Reiner, joy untouched. The comments came fast. Wow, so you're the one who's owned that place all along. That video! I cried. Thank you for sharing the truth. Even one woman wrote, I donated to Celine's venture because your mom said the house was her backing. I'd like a word with someone. Within 48 hours, Vera's persona cracked under the weight of her own fabrication. Screenshots surfaced. Old messages leaked. Friends pulled away. Even her church group leader commented, Legacy is built on truth, not theater. I didn't cheer. I didn't respond. I baked lemon loaf for Reiner's coworkers and watered the plants. Then, on a gray Sunday evening, Vera showed up again. No suitcase, no bags. Just her. Her voice was low. I don't know what to say. I stood in the doorway, didn't invite her in. You already did, I said. Every time you said nothing. She blinked too fast, searching for tears that didn't come. I never thought you'd turn cold. I met her eyes. I'm not cold, I'm clear. And I closed the door, not with anger, with finality. Weeks passed, soft and steady. No more knocks, no more updates from cousins trying to stay neutral, no more online performances of motherhood, just silence. But this time, the silence wasn't suffocating. It was space. One Saturday morning, I hosted brunch for Reiner's family. His parents brought bakery pastries. His sister arrived with her 2 kids and a pitcher of fresh squeezed orange juice. The older one, a girl about 7, darted into the kitchen while I was folding napkins into leaf shapes, just out of habit. She paused, tilting her head. That's pretty. Who taught you that? I smiled faintly and pressed the folded napkin beside her plate. No one who stayed, I said, but someone who taught me how to leave. She didn't get it. She didn't need to. She just beamed and ran back to the living room, where laughter was already echoing off the walls. After they left, I sat quietly in the sunlit kitchen, alone with the leftover lemon loaf and the half-folded napkins. I didn't feel lonely. I felt full. Not from food, but from presence, from the kind of love that doesn't require grand gestures or spotless legacy. That night, I curled up on the couch with my journal, unsure how to wrap up something that had unraveled for so long. So I just wrote the truth. My mother didn't just skip my wedding. She skipped showing up for the woman I became. Then I paused and added, but I don't measure love by who claps loudest or who posts the most. I measure it by who shows up when no one's watching. That's the thing about building a life. You think it's about the milestones, vows, birthdays, housewarmings, but it's really about who brings your trash bin in when you forget, who checks the pilot light when the heat goes out, who folds napkins beside you, not to judge, but just to be near. I remembered the bouquet I threw, not for show, but out of hope. I remembered the video that didn't play, and the one Reiner kept anyway. And I remembered the little girl asking about the napkin fold, seeing something beautiful and assuming it came from love. Maybe that's how the next generation learns, not from the loudest voice in the room, but from the quiet ones who choose honesty over tradition. I closed the journal and whispered, not to anyone, not even to myself, but into the stillness. Sometimes the family you build is the one you finally get to choose. And I meant it.